Hlulani Mabasa. I am the current president of the Black Consciousness Movement United, CMU. Prior to that, I was a member of the Socialist Party of Azania, working within the youth structure, SIRO, the Socialist Young Revolutionary Organization, youth Revolutionary Organization, as the interim political commissar in that organization. So I've been an activist for the better part of my growing up life, up until we were then elected at Congress. I think it was 2021 in December in the Eastern Cape. Then I was elected to be the president.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So tell us a bit more about Black Consciousness. What is it about? What can we understand about Black Consciousness?
Well, first and foremost, the Black Consciousness philosophy is a philosophy that developed around about the period of the 1960s. You would remember that it does not develop in a vacuum. Prior to the 1960s, there was a very strong move towards Africanism. And you had the development of such organizations such as Pan-Africanism as a world. And that is where you saw a very strong insistence on Pan-Africanism and so forth. And subsequent to the very development of a Pan-Africanist move, we spoke to Africans and those within the continent and those in the diaspora. Then there was a crisis in the context of South Africa, in that you had in the 1960s a resistance that was taken by the African National Congress as well as the Pan-Africanist Congress, resulting in them being subsequently banned as an organization and their leaders being thrown into prison for very lengthy sentences, notably the likes of the late Prof. Magaliso Robert Sobuka. Then you had a period of a serious lull during the period of 1962 to the better part of 66, 67 or so. But there was something that was happening in the world which was very interesting, and that was a move towards blackness. You would remember, for the longest part, black people were called black in a very derogative type of way. Whites were calling us black because they had made an opposite of them being white. But in Occupied Azania, it was quite interesting that it didn't just end there. There was also the fact that you are non-white. Now, as there was this move towards blackness, you had the figures such as Malcolm X, you had figures such as Stokely Carmichael, who in fact put it at the center of the thinking. And that was during 1966, June 16, when the shout went out that what we want black power. The rippling effect of the call for black power did not just remain in the United States alone, but it also went as far as an international outcry for people who have been discriminated against on the basis of their color, particularly dark-skinned people who have been segregated purely on that basis. When it came here to Occupied Azania, the likes of Steve Biko and others, first they understood that it was problematic to have white students speaking on behalf of blacks. Similarly, it was problematic to have white leadership speaking on behalf of blacks. So they then developed the philosophy of black consciousness with a guiding principle that we have defined those as black who are traditionally, politically, culturally, and economically excluded on the main through the resources of the country and whatever means. Then you had a new framing, at least in the context of Occupied Azania, of what blackness had to mean. And there was a reason why it had to mean that, because there was a need for us to move as a group. In South Africa at the time, you had three particular groups. You had your so-called whites at the top, you had then your so-called Indian colored at the middle, then you had your so-called Bantus at the bottom. Now, Black Consciousness philosophy understood that for those who are in the middle and those who are at the bottom, they find that they are at the mercy of the one who is at the top. So the privileged giver today can afford the so-called colored and Indian second citizen status, but if maybe they misbehave, they can even afford the same status to the so-called Bantu. Then they came up with this view of saying, we have to let go of the power that is willed on us by the privileged givers. And therefore, we are calling ourselves black as a rejection of being non-white, because even the term non-white implies that one has a status to look towards, which is white. And if you are not white, you will never be white. So even if somebody calls you non-white, there's never a time and point in history where you'll actually be white. And the joke is always told that you don't call a donkey a non-horse, you call it a donkey.
Yes.
So why would you want to call us non-white? You know. So there was an idea of moving as a group to saying, let us try and build a solidified front to be able to engage the enemy and those who control the means of production, those who control the land, those who control the resources, and those who are responsible for the deplorable conditions that we find on earth. However, it does not mean every so-called black person who's got a dark skin color automatically qualifies to being black, because black is a political orientation that one assumes as well. So on the one side, it has to do fundamentally with us rallying together because of the pigment of our skin. But it is not naive to assume that because we rally together because of the basis of our skin color or because of the color divide that Du Bois spoke about, it automatically means that every black person is on the right cause. And clearly, we can explain that with the situation that Africa finds itself today.
So, what can African people take from the black consciousness? What can benefit us?
Steve Biko was asked around the question of death. He spoke of his death as being an organizing thing, a politicizing thing. He understood that on the main, we are not fighting around. In fact, if we take it back, when the South African student organization SASO, with Champion Black Consciousness, was formed, Steve Biko became the first president. There was a move for him to be second president or to get a second term. But he refused on the basis that we do not want to create a cult personality. People have to understand that they join the struggle on the basis that they too have a role to play in that particular struggle. And it's for that reason that then, when one joins a movement, you join it because you understand that this is a just war that we're engaged in. And therefore, anything that is to function in that organization functions because you as a comrade have committed to yourself to this particular philosophy. That is why when we talk about the Black Consciousness movement, we also speak about the Black Consciousness philosophy. You must be in agreement with this philosophy in order for you to be part and parcel of that movement. Now, in the context of Africa, let's start maybe from a simple thing. Biko started off with the Black Power movement generally. They spoke about black men, black women, you're fine the way you look. You don't need the straight hair. You don't need
to
bleach your skin. You don't need to fit in Western standards. That is sort of like on the most basic level. The appreciation of self, the aesthetics of self, and making sure that we don't want to copy or find ourselves being made in the image of others. But beyond that, maybe slightly beyond that, there was also an appreciation of African culture, our ways, our systems, which were also important. And even though the colonialists came with our religion, we realized that our religion was not fundamentally different from what they were proposing. Just maybe it's a manner of approach on certain things. But beyond that, the view was that we have a problem of white supremacy in the world. We have a problem of imperialism in the world. We've got a problem of white bondage that makes it difficult for the oppressed of the world to be able to breathe and to live suitable lives on earth and to live legitimate lives on earth. And for that reason, the Black Consciousness movement found itself, and this is where the distinction is with Pan-Africanism. It found itself not speaking only for Africans who are in the continent alone, but also speaking on behalf of Africans, or speaking on behalf of people that are not of African descent, but they too experience racism on the basis of their skin color and so forth. So it sort of does address the problems of Africa, but in the same vein addresses problems that are much bigger than Africa, because on the main, the Black Consciousness movement said that our quest is the call for a true humanity, a humanity with a more humane face.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's really truthful. And I think for everyone that is listening, they will definitely know what can attract them better, because sometimes we tend to join movements without understanding what is there or what will benefit me as a human being. And especially having a black consciousness, sometimes we tend to never understand that consciousness and how it relates to black African people. So that was beautiful, and I like that you just gave that to everyone that is will be watching this to maybe learn some more. So what motivated you to stand for this? What is that goal that when you look at yourself and you say, every morning when you wake up, you just look at yourself and say, I'm still going to fight, I'm still going to move on, I'm still going to stand for this. What is that motivation about?
Well, there's a saying that if you're scared of politics, you're scared of yourself, because everything is political. So in as much as one would want to sit and say, maybe life is better, the reality is that life is not better. You look at the world, you look at the condition of people in the world, it's in the worst shape than it has ever been. You look at the condition of the continent itself, it's in a worse condition than it could ever be. So there is no utopia on this world. And capitalism is really showing us its full force as a barbaric system and as a system that is against humanity on any level and even against the earth itself. So one could not sit aside and say, this is how life works. It doesn't work this way, because the reality is that you have a few men at the top who control the fate of the majority, at the bottom.
Yes.
So there is something that has got to give, and some of us are willing for that thing to be given. But we understand that revolution is never won because of benevolence or magnanimity. Revolution is only won when people are willing to engage the enemy. And that is why I got into the fight, understanding that I'm not creating the world, but I'm part and parcel of those that know that something has got to give, and we are willing to give that which is needed urgently.
With that, you're sacrificing everything that you think is your life, part of your life. What are the struggles and challenges you have encountered?
Well, when organizing for any movement, in particular different kinds of movements, you see, when you organize for NGOs, it's quite different. When you organize for movements that are pro-capitalism, it's quite different. But when you organize as a vanguard organization, organizing against capital, organizing against white supremacy, there is a sense of resistance. It's not a resistance that is by mistake. It's a learned resistance. Black people have learned to stay in their place, and they try not to disturb the peace. So now and again, because of that, they might be a little bit resistant to organizations that are proposing a different worldview. More so if you're an organization that is proposing a different socio-economic system altogether. So there is that level of difficulty with regards to that, but I don't think it can last forever, because the people, whether they are confused on some instances, their eyes are beginning to be opened. And they can't betray forever. And in any case, it is always the duty of revolutionary organizations to capture the imagination of the people and to educate the people as well.
And which is true. I think we all need to be aware of ourselves. We all need to be aware of our origins. We all need to be aware of our history, and in a way for us to understand how to rebuild what has been taken away from Africa and how to rebuild our identity as African people.